I'm stopping myself because I could literally talk to you for hours about the George Farmer story.
When the camera's on, it's all a big bit of fun on the Big Red Shutter Club. On the Big Red Shutter Club. I'll do.
The band name always comes up a lot. Get asked about that a lot. Like why the...
Because you are not George Farmer.
Exactly, and I think it's nice to have the opportunity to explain a little bit as to the background. I never fully go into it, but there's reasons for that. But I do skirt about it.
So, hello, and welcome back to the Red Shutter Club. I am today with...
Sully from the Mighty George Farmer.
You always go by the Mighty George Farmer. That's the name of your band.
Yes.
Explain us a little bit about the name of that band.
So, for a long time, I was an answer to George, and people thought that was my name, which stands to reason. It makes sense. They also thought I was a little bit up myself because I called myself the Mighty George Farmer.
Yeah.
You know, and then there was a little bit of pressure getting up on stage. He better be good, this lad. Thinks he's the Mighty George Farmer. But in the beginning, I didn't hear it and recognise it. And people would give me a nudge. They're shouting you, they're shouting you. I'm like, oh yeah, I am now George. But it's never been the case. So, yeah, my surname is Sullivan. So Sully is the long-standing nickname, and the Mighty came about as a bit of a V's up to a group of lads at the time that were taking the mick over assuming the name George Farmer. So originally, it originally started off as a solo act.
Yeah.
Where a lot of bands are formed and then live the life, and then it comes to an end and breakaway solo acts develop and whatever. This is the other way round, really. So there was a level of anonymity by taking the name George Farmer, and that came, obviously people naturally going to be saying, yeah, but why George Farmer? So it's an Everton football club connection in that George Farmer was the first player to sign a professional contract with the club back in the 1800s. And being obviously a big Evertonian, it was I liked it, but at the time I would say worry, but I was aware. I had an awareness that I never wanted descended family, to think that that I'd assumed the identity of George Farmer or anything along those lines. And when I looked at his life and times, I thought we were in no danger whatsoever of that, given that he died in it was 1905. So I thought we're all right, we're safe. Fast forward 6-7 years, and I'm now in contact with a good handful of George Farmer's real life descendants.
That's wild.
Who I'm pleased to say are made up about the story, really, and the use of his name. So yeah, I'm not George, but I'll happily be George for anyone that wants me to be.
Oh goodness. Well, that's great. I don't know many people who have like actual sort of pseudonyms or stage names. I only know of two people, and one, she just changed her last name slightly, and then the other one, I don't know why he has a stage name, because his stage name is Dr. Orange, but his name is Chaz Moody.
Yeah.
Which sounds like a
way
stage
better.
name.
Yeah.
But it is interesting, that idea of anonymity. What drew you to that in the first place?
I think it was just the nature probably of the work I was involved in at the time, and really the compulsion to get back onto the music scene, or certainly start gigging again, was there. And I wanted to keep a low profile, really. And I know that sounds silly, because I think it probably goes against what a lot of people think that sort of energy, the vibe and the energy of it is, really. But and that was one of the reasons why I liked, the second reason really why I liked the name, was because it was very unassuming. And then I completely contradict myself by taking the full title of The Mighty George Farmer, which is just probably as pompous as you could probably get. But that, as I was saying before, that was all down to just constant banter, really. Here he is, the Mighty George Farmer. Here he is, the mighty. I said, you know what? So there was the two fingers to them, and I just kept it. And obviously, I was writing, and by which time I'd met a fantastic lad, good mate of mine now, lad called Tom Caulfield, who's, a lot of people watching this will probably be well aware of Tom on the scene. And Tom engineered, mixed, produced the first record. So I had a collection of songs then that were ready to go, and released them under the title The Mighty George Farmer. But if you listen to that record, the first one, that Northern Grit, it's not you wouldn't listen to that singer-songwriter vibe. You listen to that's a band. There's drums, there's bass, there's keys, there's guitars, there's so what I struggled with afterwards was replicating that live. I couldn't do it. So people would only ever get an acoustic versions of the songs, which is nice, but I wanted to get
It is important to do, because a lot of people will release stuff in the scene and then you go and listen to it and it's this amazingly mastered thing and it's got layers and layers and layers of everything. Then you go see them live, and even with a band, you can't. My band had that problem. We could not recreate our stuff live with the lineup that we had.
Yeah. And and sometimes I think with that's been going on for years, and it'll carry on for years. I would expect, but it's how you deliver that as a band. I know that the songs that we play live now, they don't necessarily. Some do, but some don't sound like the record. And yeah, I don't know. It's that sometimes that's the nice bit about going to see a band live, is that you get that rawness, and you're as an audience member, you're a little piece of being in the room when that was probably fun. And the effects and the production that was done afterwards is nice. That's another experience altogether. But it's not such a bad thing sometimes. But that was I did feel like I was ready. I did it years back. Teenage lad into my early 20s was probably the first real band, and then once after that, if ever you know yourself, managing bands can be difficult, to say the least. But great group of lads, Cactus Rays, Bearscough Wharf, jam nights, open mic nights. And just started from there, really, to pull a band together, teach the lads the tunes.
Well, the reason I asked about the anonymity is you're the only person I think I've heard actually talk about that being the reason they took a name.
Yeah.
And I did the same thing. Yeah. I started releasing music ages before I was a part of any music scene. I was just playing with the software I had on my computer for shits and giggles.
Yeah.
And I didn't want it connected to my name, so I was like, "Oh, what do I name? What do I name?" And then I looked at the file, and it said Draft 5 because it's the 5th draft that I had done. I was like, "Yeah, that sounds like
that'll do.
That's it. That'll do."
Yeah.
But I did it because I didn't want people to know I was a finance major at the time, and I don't know that I would have recovered from that.
Yeah. I understand. Yeah, I understand that. there's something in that about levels to people.
Yeah.
About different levels to people, the way you perceived and stereotype and things like that. That's a whole other conversation.
That's another podcast.
It is, and it does touch on that. That would be interesting actually to look at that name, but in a completely different, from a different perspective. Because that what I've just explained is one, but there is at least one other perspective to it. But save that for the book.
Well, it's almost the same as with songs. I was talking with Tom Lane earlier about, like, he said he doesn't like to discuss what the meaning behind things are because he likes people to have their own experience with it.
Yeah.
So it's not about what the song is to him. Or did he just make it
all up and he can't? I don't know.
Don't call him out like that.
I'm not at all. I'm just just for the crack.
Gosh, right,
but I respect that totally, and I think I'm only joking, obviously, but I respect that totally, and I think it is nice to have a mystery. That's and you could always. I don't know what I've just said is right or wrong, and there's a mystery to when he's written, and then when he has put that out there, you want to ask. And and sometimes people don't, but you'd want to ask, what was that about? And he'll never tell you. And there's a bit of mystery to it, which I quite like. I, on the other hand, I'm probably the complete opposite in that every lyric that has ever gone into a song, there is there's not that there's not with him. I'm sure that there is, but there's a meaning, and there's a depth to that, which I like to explain to people when I've got the time. You can't do that at gigs. You get a very brief amount of time before the song to maybe explain a little bit about it. But because the songs are written from the heart about real things that have happened to real people, and a lot of it is kind of a story that they're told in a kind of a storyteller fashion a little bit. I like the opportunity to, that line. That was about. And that bit there, that was actually about, that's just the start, and then there's far more to it, yeah.
So, one of your EPs that you released, very Everton related, your band is called The Mighty George Farmer, and that EP did not have a song about George Farmer.
No. Football themed, yeah. It's called Raised on These Terraces, and I have to say, I always feel like I should say a big thank you to Southport Football Club, who were right on board with that as a project, if you like, and assisted in the cover artwork. So if anyone's ever wondering, you probably would tell if you know football. But if you don't, the cover is it's not actually Everton. It's up at Hague Avenue in Southport.
Lies, all lies.
Yeah. So yeah, they were great, and always grateful to them for that. And there was 4 tracks on that, all themed around going to the match. Such a massive part of my life, and it just felt natural. To be honest with you, I had one track that was left over from that Northern Grit, and I didn't want to put it on because it didn't feel like a football tune really fitted. But I felt like I had more football stuff to do. And I know some people hesitate over overlapping music and football. They don't want to. There's reasons for that. But especially in the city of Liverpool, music and football have always and will always go together. So I just felt like I could do a few tracks a little bit of justice. So the Raised on These Terraces EP came out, and as you say, no mention whatsoever. It's not, if anyone's thinking about listening to it, it's not Everton music. It's football. It's obviously inspired by my time spent cup runs and things like that, and relegation fights, and the ups and downs of Everton through the 90s into the noughties, really. And then one night in the bar, me and Winnie are talking. Winnie's the bass player in our band, and who's a Red, by the way. So, fair play to him, and he's saying, we haven't got a song about George Farmer. Is that not weird? That really we should. And we thought about like the ballad of the mighty George Farmer or something along those lines. So that conversation was had and the seed was planted, and then only a short space of time later, I get a phone call from a guy called Jamie Yates, fantastic fella from the Everton Heritage Society, who I can now call a really good friend of mine, rang me up and asked me to confirm the origin of the band name, to which I told him it was Everton related, and he then told me that for the last 5 years he'd been carrying out research and building a project around shining some light on what an absolute superstar of the day.
How mighty.
How very mighty the mighty George Farmer was. And during a conversation with Jamie, it naturally came up for the second time. Have you not got a song about George Farmer? And I'd never wanted to force it. I had thought about it from time to time, but I'd never wanted to force it. And then it just seemed like this is starting to naturally appear. And sure enough, I think within the space of a week or so, an acoustic version of the track had materialised. And then Jamie's got to take quite a bit of credit because of the work that he's done. Unbelievable amount of work that Jamie's put into the project from the Everton Heritage side of things, was able to give me an insight into the life and times of the fella himself, and what a life him and his family had. And there was no video footage at the time. So there's no actual record of certain chants. One of them was Play Up George, Hey Georgie. These are written about in match reports and newspaper articles of the time. And those things then inspired the writing of the song. And so the lyrics, Oswestry Vines, up to Gertrude Road, which is the opening line of the song, that was where George was from. Vine Cottages in Oswestry in Shropshire, and signed for Everton in 1885 and moved into number 1 Gertrude Road, Anfield, when Everton were playing at the original ground of Anfield. So, there's far more to the story, which Jamie is very much on with, and be very, very exciting when that all comes out. So, the song Hey Now Georgie, and there are lyrics, Play Up George in there too. Was made and is due to be, hopefully, a terrace favourite, really.
It's interesting that you mentioned the chants there in a lot of your inspiration for it. Whenever I think of football chants, those aren't really a thing in the States. That's not a thing that we have for any of our sports. You get a little bit, but not to the same degree. The only context I had of football chants was through music, specifically Pink Floyd.
Yeah.
Because in some of their songs, it's in the background.
Yeah.
And one of my first nights here, back when I lived at the Lantern across from Lime Street, I had my window open and I heard the chants outside. And I texted my friend who's also a big Pink Floyd fan, and I was like, oh my God, it's real. It's a thing.
It's actually happening.
It's not just a Pink Floyd song. I want to say it was Fearless, I think.
Yeah.
But, yeah, definitely.
Fantastic. Yeah, there's so many that have been taken, songs that have been taken onto the terraces, reworded and live on. But I just feel like I wouldn't want anyone to think that this has been written for the sole purpose of that. It genuinely hasn't. It's been written because it's naturally developed through obviously the name of the band, and then the connection with Jamie, and as I say, the unbelievable amount of work that's gone into the Guy George farm was buried in Anfield Cemetery in an unmarked grave, and died in poverty, which is a real shame, to say the least, given his status at the time, when football was really just starting to gather ahead of steam, and what we now recognise as Everton in the community. There was a form of that back then. So Louisa, who was his wife, and their 8 kids, believe it or not, probably fairly common at the time. George died age 41 and left the family behind, and a form of Everton in the community provided funding to the rallied round and provided funding to the family. And yeah, for him to have been literally forgotten within reason, but by and large completely forgotten. If you ask Evertonians who George Farmer is, the vast majority will not know who that guy is, which is a real shame.
And then the other half will think that it's you.
Yeah, probably. Well, that's that fella, isn't it? There, yeah. He's the that guy. So yeah, it's for it to be recognised, and for the band to have a song that reflects a little bit of the identity is great. But having been brought up on the Gladys Street end, it couldn't help but be an anthemic tune, and I wouldn't be surprised to hear it sung out in hopefully in Goodison before it goes. But we'll see. Now,
pivoting just a little bit, I do remember, I think it was probably the first time we met at Monday Club.
Yeah.
I remember, I think Prowsey was making some kind of little speech about people talking about politics and real life within music. And you were saying something to me like, that's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
That's what I'm doing. I'm right here, Prowsey.
Yeah. Yeah, there was another guy in that night. Sorry to cut over you. There was another guy in that night. I don't know if you remember, and he was talking about trade unions.
Yeah,
and that how it's the guy's opinion, and he's quite rightly entitled to it. And he was saying that night that only Ian Prowse will represent that movement in that way.
That's what it was. Yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
And I had a pint with him afterwards, and was talking to him and just said, like, he continues to do some great work around that, but there are other people in the grassroots of it all, really, and probably because it's not his fault. The guy doesn't know about it, so therefore he doesn't see it, and that's why his opinion's formed, which makes a lot of sense. But it's technically not right, in as much as there are a good handful of people out there who are prepared to tackle issues which do border on political, and not afraid to do it as well. And I think it's important because the music has the ability to connect with a lot of people and get the message across. There's the second album, Passion and Fact. There's a lot of lyrical content throughout that whole album, which I just couldn't help it. When I was writing, that was what was coming out, and that was coming out based on life at the sharp end and experiencing everything that just seems to be so far off the scale now, with rising costs, political correctness, which I think most people are absolutely sick and tired of. We're at the points where it's just gone, the balance has just gone too far the other way, and I can only write about stuff that I feel passionate about, and I put him onto a couple of the tracks off the record. Said, if that's what you're after, it is out there. Go and have a listen to it. There's songs like History Repeats, Read Between the Lines, Long Gone. Each one of those tracks has really got, is not afraid to go and tackle those type of issues, really.
Yeah, because music back in the day was just like almost entirely politics. Not actually, but it was so heavily involved, and that really got me thinking. You don't see it a lot either in mainstream or in the scene.
Yeah.
You know?
I think for me, and this is just part of my personality, really. I think I get so frustrated is probably the right word. I get so frustrated when I see, and this is through, you know, I'm not doing it anymore, but through paid work and employment, if you will, and a lot of apathy, a lot of well, what can we do about it? Well, that just doesn't sit right with me. If something's not right, there's a collective of people who you'll talk to who say, yeah, I know, yeah, that's right, that. Well, what are you doing about it now? What are we all doing about it then? You know, and music for me is an outlet to be able to put that in. And I was always the one that was stood there on my own having the fight, looking over my shoulder to see who's backing me up, and I'm looking and everyone sat down facing the other way, and that was really, I found that when I was right, that was the thing. When you know you're right and you need you need people to back you, and they weren't, and maybe that's why the songs took that direction, really.
Maybe you've been in the scene for a while. What advice would you have to people who are kind of just starting to make their way in?
I like that.
Yeah.
We'll talk about the community side of things.
Yeah,
I like that. Let's
community.
do that.
What? On the Red Shutter Club? What? Oh, sorry.
So I thought you were gonna.
So you've been in the scene for a while. What sort of advice would you give to people just kind of coming into the community?
I think community is the operative word in the question, really. I think that if the music that's being put out is targeted towards your own community, or the network that you operate in, or the city that you're plying your trade, I think you can measure your success. However you term success, but you can measure your success a little bit better. You see a lot now. Music is made, produced, released, distributed, and effectively it's globally distributed through an online platform. Is the most common way. I know that some people are still resisting that, and they will use things like Bandcamp and physical copies as well. And every now and again, you'll see a band that will resist it entirely and will just put live performances together. And if you want to see that and you want to get behind the band, go see them, which I think is good, because that creates a little bit of a buzz and a vibe, and starts to really bring people together at the gigs as well. But yeah, where I was going with that was if you're from the outskirts of the city, if you're from in the middle of the city, wherever, there will be a community of people that you can target your music to. Obviously, it isn't going to be everyone's cup of tea, but you can get real life feedback on whether it's liked, as opposed to putting it out there, feeling all disappointed because your numbers aren't doing great. So who cares? Who cares about that? If you can do that locally, and you can put a gig on in your local pub, and people who are not even into the live music scene are in there that night and go away and go, hey, we had a band on in here the other night, and let me tell you, like, they were great. They put a gig on again a month later or 2 months later, and that manages to double or triple the number of people coming in, because the word of mouth in that community is, these are great. So I think you need two things. You have to be great to begin with, but if you are, if you've got the work ethic and you're good and you've got the good tunes, I think that would be my advice. And how you measure success. What is success? I feel successful because I'm able to write, record, release music and gig it in the city and beyond the city. And I'm happy with that, and the lads would agree. When we go out and gig, we're just trying to tick off as many grassroots venues as we can up and down the country. And our experience is that we feel a successful live band in that. And we played that place. Oh, that was a good gig, wasn't it? Oh, do you remember that night? And do you remember what happened straight after that gig? Rather than maybe aiming for, I'm not saying you shouldn't. Ambition's fantastic. You should, you know, everyone's got to have that about them. But the realism as well, the realism to think, is it good enough? And are we right place, right time, and that sort of thing? I can only really draw the analogy to football for me. The number of lads and obviously, you know, girls as well now, but how many lads go through the academies now who don't make it, so to speak? And I think it's the same with bands. So rather than looking at it as we never actually got to play Glastonbury, or we didn't play Kendall Callin, or neighbourhood weekend, look at what you did do and say, do you know what though? We played the 100 Club, we played the Cavern Live Lounge, we went down to Camden Town, we knocked a gig out there, or you know, we've and that can be, you can do that yourself. You can with the right amount of work ethic, you can do that. And if you're good, really good, and you stick at it, and you've got a vibe, naturally people are going to be hugely interested anyway. But I see it and I read it on social media, and I see it and I hear it a lot, where people are all down in the mouth and upset about, you know, I've put all this work in and I've got nothing to show for it. And you think, well, but if you had those good nights, if you've been out, if you gigged it, did you like making it? Yeah. Was that an enjoyable experience in itself? Is that the success? How many bands have had over 1 million streams on the online? So what? And I could say to somebody, oh, you know, have you heard of this band? No, they've had 2 million plays of a track, but most people have not even heard of it. So it doesn't, you can, you know, if you're chasing down the numbers, I think that's a mug's game. I think go out, enjoy it, do it for the passion and the heart and the soul of it, and if you do end up making it onto the big stages, then absolutely every credit. But go and enjoy the Zanzibar and the Jack, you know, because that's, to me, that's what it's all about.
Well, even I had to do that recently, because my initial goal for this show was to monetize it after a year. Not realistic.
Yeah.
Not realistic whatsoever. But I put it down for a month, and then I came back and I looked at it, and it grew while I wasn't touching it. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, what can we do with this? You kind of have to reevaluate and be like, well, I did do this.
Yeah.
I did walk into open mics all summer and be like, hey, you ready, Schulte?
Did I not do that to you as well?
You
in the cabin?
I believe you said, I saw you and I wanted to say something, but I didn't want to yell, Red Schulte, like everybody else did. So yeah, you've got to kind of reevaluate that. I definitely agree.
No, it's great. It's another example is, if we're allowed to mention, Hannah, who runs Johnsy Shots. The pink hair helps, to be honest. But she'll say the same thing. The amount of people that shout, Johnsy Shots, down Bold Street at her. But it's in some ways, it's just showing the effect that she's having out and the success, really.
And I think with that, we should head off to our couch concert.
Yeah.
That we definitely haven't already recorded.
Yeah.
Definitely not.
100%.
Street vines up to Gertrude Road, where the streets are blue and our history never gets old. Hey now Georgie sang on the line, the originals, we are the pride of Merseyside. The originals
originals on the Royal Blue Mersey. Oh, right from the start. Now you're in my soul and you'll always be in my heart. Oh, nothing but the best. Skin up by trade, go and skin them all off to death. Hey now, Georgie. Hey now, Georgie. On the streets of the city is where our dreams begin. Red and blue and white. We are the toughy men, we never back down from a fight. Hey now, Georgie. Hey now, Georgie. Mars was the white star to the Walton Brick Road, where the birds are blue and our history never gets old. And hey now, Georgie, shine on the line. The originals, we are the proud of Merseyside. The originals on the Royal Blue Mersey.
That was lovely.
Did you like that?
I did.
Good.
I did. And I didn't hear it an hour ago. I heard it just now.
Fantastic.
Is there anything you want to plug before we get going?
I think if people can just get behind the whole project, the whole Mighty George Farmer project would be great. It is more than a name; it's more than a band. The Everton Heritage Society have done some fantastic work on it, and I think the family members that I've met and that I've been in touch with, they've been fantastic, and they're totally supportive and understand that it, as I say, it's just that little bit more than just being a band. There is a real story and community behind it, which is really nice. So yeah, if people can listen to the track "Hey Now Georgie" and the B-side, if you know your history, and just generally have a listen to the music and get in touch. Let us know what you think. Get on it.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Anytime. And thank you so much for tuning in.
Hey now, Georgie. Hey now, Georgie.